Hey guys, great to be live with you. The last time I did a little piece on the Maui fires, a lot of people were asking about the missing kids on Maui. And so today we're going to catch you guys up on missing children after the Lahaina fires. There are, to this day, a good number of kids unaccounted for, according to the Hawaii Board of Education Superintendent Keith Hayashi. The Board of Education had a meeting last Thursday, and let me just show you how the superintendent broke down the numbers of missing kids himself right here.
I want to provide an update on our efforts to contact impacted families. The department has been making contact with families since the August 8th wildfire, in a variety of ways to support and account for students on the ground, in evacuation shelters and hotels, and at community meetings and other gathering spots. We are also closely tracking as more students continue to re-enroll in other options, including in our DOE schools or distance learning programs, charter schools, private schools, or withdrawn to homeschool or relocate out of state. We also have approximately 60 department staff at the school, complex, and state levels calling families. Of the 3,000 students originally enrolled in our 4 Lahaina schools, there are about 1,200 students as of last week who we had not yet made contact with, or who had not re-enrolled elsewhere. Of those, department staff have personally spoken with 637 families. For another 466, phone messages have been left and will continue to attempt to reach them. There are 45 students that the department still needs to make contact with, and we are actively working to reach each family. I'd like to provide Kaz Winky.
All right, so there's how he breaks down the numbers. So according to him, a week before he spoke there, it was 1,000 missing kids. Now that number is down to 466 missing kids. Well, that they've left voice messages, no answer from the family. And then another 45 students, I believe he said, who they haven't gotten around to reaching out to yet. They've only had a month plus. There's still 45 phone calls that they just haven't gotten around to yet. Your comments are funny. Where are they? In Oprah's tunnel? Leave it to my viewers, man. So there are some key clues as to where these kids might be. Before we dive in further, I want to shout out the sponsor of my coverage, National Gold Group. Surging national debt is bullish for gold. The debt ceiling drama ended with nominal budget cuts and a shiny new credit card with no limit for the federal government. A Bank of America senior analyst recently told the Wall Street Journal big stock market rally is going to be followed by a big collapse. So are you guys prepared to protect your retirement savings for at least another year of the current administration? The time for gold is here. Demand is soaring. Let National Gold Group show you options for investing in precious metals like gold and silver in your retirement accounts. And for direct delivery, take advantage of the best deal in precious metals. Mention my channel, Ivory Hecker, and pay no fees when you roll over your IRA and invest your IRA or 401k into physical gold and silver. Qualified accounts will receive their lifetime fee waiver on rollovers through 2023. Call 888-617-5927 today. Get a free investor guide. Link down in my description. Phone number down in my description. When you call that number, they know it's me who referred you, and it helps me stay independent as a journalist. National Gold Group is a Consumer Affairs top-rated gold IRA dealer. Call 888-617-5927 and add the power of gold to your portfolio. You ask, how does that keep me independent? Well, if I keep having my own independent advertisers, then I don't have to be bought out by someone, go work for someone who's compromised. I can keep working for myself. So as long as you guys keep supporting my advertisers, they keep supporting me, and we all stay independent and truth-seeking. All right, so the 74 reported, quote, at a Board of Education meeting on Thursday in Honolulu, parents lined up to call for more transparency about efforts to find children who have not yet re-enrolled in school. Superintendent Keith Hayashi said that the department knows the whereabouts and education plans of most of the some 3,000 students who had been enrolled in Lahaina before the fire. He said 907 of them have enrolled in the state's distance learning program. 782 have enrolled in other public schools, and nearly 345 students are now enrolled in charter schools, private schools, or have withdrawn, he said. Quote, we are actively reaching out to contact families for the remainder students who have not yet enrolled in an option, knowing that some may have moved out of state or have paused their child's education for the time being, he said. And then it goes on to say, after the meeting, the Department of Education spokeswoman Nenea Kalani said the department has not heard back from 463 families that it has tried to call. There are 32 families that still have not been called as the department works its way down its list of phone numbers, she said. They just haven't gotten around to to these families over a month later. And then more than 400 families just not getting back to them. So they don't know, is that kid okay? Is this family still alive? Maybe the kid's alive, but the parent who would answer the call has died. 463 families who had their children enrolled on August 8th are now MIA, according to the Department of Education. The article goes on to quote this one Hawaiian, Susan Pacola Davis, who says, quote, there's a lot of anxiety because the students aren't being identified as safe or deceased. Quote, what I don't understand is why? Why haven't all the calls been made? Good question. One child, 7-year-old Tony Takafua, has so far been included on the official list of deceased released by the Maui Police Department. On Thursday, the death toll remained at 115, with 60 individuals identified. 5 of those individuals' families have not yet been notified. Now, the Civil Beat also highlighted something else that the superintendent said. Department of Education. Here's a headline. Number of students missing, killed in Maui fire is too small to release. That's literally what this superintendent who I just played the soundbite from, he's saying, look, the kids who are missing or killed, it's so small. We don't need to even tell you guys about it. Yet he hasn't heard back from over 400 families of those kids. So how do you know that they're not missing or deceased? It sounds like they're missing to me. If you can't even hear back from him. But Civil Beat, that's their headline. They said, quote, Superintendent Keith Hayashi said the department knows the whereabouts and education plans of most of the some 3,000 students who had been enrolled in Lahaina before the fire. And then the article goes on to quote the same numbers that you heard him say in the clip. 466 families just not responding, MIA, no idea where the kid is. They had actually just started the school year, I was reading, when the fire broke out. And at that time, it was 3,001 kids enrolled. And now, more than a month later, not only are those kids not coming back to school, but the school system is unable to get a hold of their families or anything. So yet he somehow knows that the number of missing or killed is too insignificant to even release. Now, the concern about where these kids are started late in August. Evie magazine was one of the many reporting more than 2,000 children from Lahaina public schools still missing after Maui fire. Quote, in a deeply concerning development, the Hawaii State Department of Education has reported that 2,025 students remain unaccounted for in the Lahaina public school system following a devastating fire August 8th in Lahaina, Maui. Of the 3,001 students initially enrolled across 4 schools in the district, 538 have re-enrolled. That was in late August. And then 438 at that time had enrolled in distance learning. However, the fate of the remaining 2,000 was still uncertain at that time. The schools comprising 2 elementary schools, 1 intermediate, and 1 high school, are currently closed due to fire damage. 1 elementary school is severely damaged and unlikely to reopen, while the others have suffered damage from wind, debris, and soot. Now, here's an interesting part that Evie magazine pointed out that adds a big clue. Quote, private schools in Maui are also impacted. Maui Preparatory Academy received almost 1,000 new applications and reshuffled its campus to accommodate 110 new students and a 40% enrollment increase. Sacred Heart School, with about 200 students, was destroyed by this fire. You hear that? This private school, this private academy, got 1,000 new applications. And they nearly doubled the amount of students by accepting 110 of those students. So they got way more applications than they could take. So clearly some of those kids who were enrolled in public schools tried to switch to private school. It sounds like 1,000 of them tried to switch to private school, and it was just too many for the private school to take. Okay. Now, my suspicion is that, yes, I mean, some of these kids very well may have died, or, you know, hopefully their families have just been, you know, completely upended and they've taken off somewhere else. Maybe they moved to another state and they're not answering the calls because their whole world has been turned upside down. They're probably getting a lot of calls and ignoring most of them because their lives are devastated and they're picking up the pieces. That is probably the likely scenario, but I want to show you, you know, a lot of people are wondering, were kids kidnapped? Like, you think back to the Haiti earthquake and the devastation there, and the word that some of the kids were kidnapped at that time. And it's like, that's not happening here, is it? God forbid. And, you know, we don't know anything for sure, right? But here's where the Hawaii Department of Education, I've put their whole slideshow here down in my description, but this is boe.hawaii.gov. They actually have photos of the damaged elementary school here. You can see severely damaged in the fire, and wind and debris damage to some other facilities, including the high school, elementary school, and intermediate school there. They only had 4 public schools in Lahaina, according to the reports. And let me show you the numbers. Now, here is where the word got out that as of August 21st, 2,000 kids were missing. By August 21st, the remainder, it says, quote, remainder of students who have not re-enrolled in another public school or opted for distance learning, they may have moved out of state or enrolled in private schools. That's 2025. You know, they're throwing out guesses. Maybe they moved, maybe they're in private schools, but honestly, the Board of Education just didn't know at that time. Well, the superintendent is now saying it's the number of unknowns, kids who are just MIA, is now down to 466 as of his last meeting. So who knows? I mean, where do you guys think these kids are? People have been speculating that the number of missing, because the FBI, was it last week, had said that there was about 300 and something people who were still missing, and people were speculating that number could be much higher. And I was just wondering, why is the FBI involved in a fire? I mean, I've covered a lot of fires and the FBI was never involved, so that was a little strange. I have the soundbite of the Maui mayor, Richard Bisson Jr. It says, quote, he is an embarrassment to the good people of Hawaii by refusing to answer their question, how many children are missing. This was, I don't know if you guys saw this. This was August.
Welcome to stairs. You're the media. You can say whatever you want.
You're a.
I don't know. I wish
Yes,
I knew
you do. How many children are missing? You
I
know.
knew the answer to that. I would be happy to answer that.
You have no estimate as to how many
So-
children are missing?
I guess
Nothing?
we can end this right now if you guys want.
Sorry.
This is one of
always
the biggest
takes-
questions that the
takes-
people of Lahaina have, but you
It
don't
always
want to
takes,
answer.
it always takes one or two to ruin it for everybody.
Please, this
That's
is
what
our
happens.
first, this is our only
Well, we
opportunity
could say
to-
that about you. You ruined it for
Don't
You're
end
everybody.
it
welcome,
shortly.
you're welcome to say it. You're the media. You can say whatever you want.
You're a disaster.
All right. Okay.
Please,
Sorry.
You've been the worst mayor we could possibly imagine.
You won't even wait.
Respect.
for your turn.
Respect what? This is the most dismal response we've
You
ever
won't,
had.
you won't wait for your turn. You want to shout over these guys that are legitimate.
Why don't you give them the real answers then? Give them the real answers.
That's not his question.
Let him.
Yeah. Yeah. You can go. You can go. Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
So people obviously extremely angry and calling him out. Just some of the things that people were saying sounded like a social media comment section, but they were saying it straight to his face. It was brutal. But in all honesty, he may not have known. He probably didn't know how many kids are missing. You know, public officials are human, and I've been to many press conferences and seen many. It's usually cut out in the polished news report that the people get to see. The part where the public official gets stumped and literally doesn't know the answer to an important question, that part always gets cut out, but it actually happens a lot. And if you watch live streams of press conferences, you'll see it where the public official should know the answer to something. And there's like, dude, I genuinely don't. And it's not because they're being nefarious. It's just because they're human and maybe didn't ask enough questions themselves, or think that people would actually want to know, where are these kids? So, you know, I don't know if the mayor's actually a bad guy. I think he was overwhelmed by the situation as well, but who knows? Now, one thing that nobody's talking about, an inconvenient truth for everyone's narrative, because everyone is talking about how like Lahaina is like one of the oldest like traditional cities with locals who are trying to preserve their land so that developers or the government don't buy it out. Did you know that 40% of Lahaina is Airbnbs? That it's a major tourist town. I mean, most of Hawaii is known to be touristy, but I've been to I've traversed Maui, and much of Maui is wilderness, and I mean it's the wilderness. It feels like the Wild West in parts of wilderness jungle, and very non-touristy area, a lot of non-touristy areas. But Lahaina is apparently extremely touristy, and nobody's talking about that. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter whether it's a touristy area or not, or what the socioeconomic status of the people is. Devastating fire is a devastating fire, and rich lives and poor lives matter. But I think that the narrative amongst everyone has been skewed as to what this town was actually all about. It was a major tourist town. It had a ton of rich people. It was a very rich area. And many of the homes that were devastated were real estate that was owned by real estate developers that was turned into Airbnbs. New York Times snuck this into the bottom of one of their stories. You know, it's interesting. Sometimes I find myself, if I'm watching a video or reading a report, I'll naturally gravitate to like the end of the story, because that's where a lot of the truth is hidden. You know, the mainstream narrative will be up at the top, but a lot of times reporters hide the truth down in like the bottom of this article. And sure enough, so this New York Times article, towards the bottom, they get to some actual details about Lahaina. It says, quote, during the last half century, Lahaina transformed again from a center of agriculture to a tourism magnet. Pricey hotels went up on the ocean front. Visitors came, and some decided to invest. They bought condos and timeshares, driving up prices and reducing inventory for Lahaina's workers. As many as 40% of Lahaina's housing units are used for short-term rentals on sites like Airbnb, according to University of Hawaii data. The pandemic, it goes on to say that the pandemic turbocharged the wealth stratification. Hawaii has the highest home prices in the United States, and the Lahaina area has among the highest prices of anywhere in Hawaii, farther north from the town center, away from the worst fire damage. An 8-bedroom house on a manicured cliff above the Pacific is currently listed for sale at $19.9 million. Lahaina is the home of millionaires. Granted, there's probably poor people in every city, but I'm not sure why everyone, like every corner of every outlet, alternative or otherwise, stirred up people's emotions by saying like these poor little local traditional Hawaiians who had nothing, hanging on by a thread just to survive there. That was all that Lahaina was. Again, I think it's horrible regardless, and my heart goes out to the people regardless. But it appears the truth is that Lahaina is a very affluent area, and with a huge percentage of tourism. 40% of the homes are Airbnbs, and then we got hotels on top of that. So 50% of the people who were hit hard are real estate developers who have insurance. Again, which that would be great. I mean, again, it's horrible regardless. People lost their lives, but let's just look at the truth. Let's just look at the truth here. Anyway, another big update here is that the Hawaii AG, Attorney General, here's a new headline from Hawaii News Now. Hawaii AG to review independent investigation into Maui fires before release to the public. So the local news seems to be really being critical here and really digging like the news should, which I like to see. And now they're doing a report on how people are very concerned that the Attorney General may screen and weed out the truth about what really happened on Maui. And let me just play their report for you so you can hear it directly from Hawaii News Now. Here it is.
An investigation into government's emergency response, the De Lahaina burn, continues. Critics worry what the state is calling an independent investigation might not be so independent. Eddie Dowd reports.
H&N has confirmed the state attorney general will have power to decide what's released to the public, at least initially. Some critics worry it's a tactic to potentially cover up what's really happened.
There's been many broken promises. How do the people of Lahaina really trust that?
Many questions remain as to what happened the day of August 8th in the fire that left at least 115 dead in West Maui. An independent investigation is working to get answers, but news that the state will get the final say on what's released has some fire victims saying it's BS.
We need to know what is going on.
H&N has learned of a meeting on August 29th where 4 state senators discussed their concerns to the Attorney General. All 4 of them told us after leaving the meeting, they still feel more needs to be done.
This is not about the AG nor the administration. In order to adhere to those standards the families deserve, it's imperative that the AG and the administration and others are removed from the process.
The community is very interested in having the real story. By keeping it third party, what we're trying to do is help the community be very, very confident in the findings.
Senator, there are some concerns that, with the Attorney General being able to review this report before it's released, that there could be changes or the report could be tampered with. From your talks with the AG's office, do you have those concerns?
I do not. I have worked with the AG on other topics, and I've found her to be of the highest ethics. And so I believe we are going to get the full story without any editing going on.
In a statement, the AG's office said, quote, "The Attorney General is committed to a full, comprehensive, and transparent investigation, while the reports of that investigation shared with the public. While we will not speculate as to future hypothetical circumstances, we note that in any investigation, publicly revealing some information prematurely could compromise other aspects of the investigation that remain ongoing. In any investigation, information may be withheld temporarily to protect the integrity of the investigatory process. The Attorney General's office did answer all of our questions about the AG's power in this investigation and says it is committed to staying transparent throughout this process. It is not known yet when the initial report will be released. Eddie Dowd, Hawaii News Now.
So there you go. The Hawaiians are very concerned that this, what was supposed to be an independent review of what really happened with this fire, is not going to be independent after all, because the AG gets to screen it first before presenting it to the public. It is kind of weird. So there we go. I just thought I would catch you up. You're checking your comment section. So where are the children? That's the big question. 466 kids still unaccounted for, according to the Hawaii Department of Education Superintendent Keith Hayashi. He's saying that 466 families, they've been calling, reaching out, and those kids are MIA. Even though they enrolled at the beginning of the school year, they have never shown up to class since the fire. And then an additional 45, some reports are 32, some are 45, that the department has just not gotten around to calling them. Like, okay, I'm not sure what you're doing, that you're not calling all of them. Just wrap it up, finish those last few dozen, and figure out if those families are okay. But at least they were honest about like that. Well, as far as we know, as far as we know, that's their honest story. So I just thought I would catch you up with that. Now, I have another really interesting piece on this scientist who's actually coming forward about how he finagles his studies to get them published in prestigious journals and compromises the truth in regards to global warming, in regards to climate change, which we know the climate change narrative has been used a lot with this Maui fire. Well, I think I'm going to cover the story tomorrow. The scientists coming out like, look, yeah, we're literally slanting the truth to get our studies published. If they do a more like climate change is real and devastating angle, it's more likely that the report will be published by prestigious journals. So if they slant, even the truth being slanted in scientific studies, it's really horrifying how the truth seems to be slanted everywhere. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Please hit subscribe, share with a friend, like, comments, and I'll see you guys hopefully tomorrow. Come back to my channel. See you then. Bye.